Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloko Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloko Tranayaka Runa Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnana Vasya Vande Gurashi Charana Vrindam Prapta Saka Gurnana Vasya Vande Gurashi Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditramadhyam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Shri Joktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Truptan Kritvaiva Trupte Bhajato Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Shiradhikama Davayara Param Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Gurashi Ne Kunjayuno Ratikeli Sidhai Jajali Bhir Juktir Apekshaneya Ne Kunjayuno Ratikeli Sidhai Jajali Bhir Juktir Tatrati Daksha Ativalavasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Tatrati Daksha Ativalavasya Sakjadharidvena Shamastashashre Ruktastatthava Vyataiva Sadhuvi Sakjadharidvena Shashre Kintu Pravarja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Dhyayam Stubham Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Dhyayam Stubham Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Samene Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachata Dishatarine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachata Dishata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chaitanya Nityananda Nityananda. Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Haribo, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Nama Krishna, Jadavaye Namaha, Jadavaye Madhavaya, Keshavaya Namaha, Gopal Govindaram, Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath, Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda, Shri Advaita Sita, Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Pramanande, Hari Hari Haribo. Jai Vishnupada Paramsa Prabhajaka Chari Suttara His Divine Grace of Vaishnava Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Pratishtha Viviti Samstapaka Chara Vaishnava Siramani Pati Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauri Guru Vargapati Jodhari Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhadra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai. Dayananta Guru Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shaddaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Param Dayal Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Jai Premanama Sankirtane Kajanaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shma Guru Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavalina Avatar Ki Jai. Gaur Pera Pramadhan Hari Nam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai. Jugadharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Brihat Danga translate of Bhakti Shri Vishnu Seva Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakut Narada Kun Samkun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrajabhum Vrindavan Mathurudham Ki Jai. Fellowship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai. Shri Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai. Param Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspatra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Krishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai. Jaganga Maya Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Mathura Dharani Ki Jai. Shamaveta Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaurari Pramanande. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya. Pralada la da da Naralada Narada Aine Hiranyakasipu Baksa Hiranyakasipu Baksa Silatangkalaye Jaya Silatangkalaye Ito nisingo parato nisinga Jata jata jami tata nisinga Bair nisinga Hrudaye nisinga Narasingha Madhimi Sharanam Prapade Tabakara Kamala Bare Naka Arabata Singha Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanabringa Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Tabakara Kamala Bare Naka Adavata Singha Dalita Tanabringa Kesavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Kesavadruta Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Kesavadruta Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jaya Nishingade Jaya Nishingade Nishingade Jaya Nishingade Jaya Narahari Jaya Narahari Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Bhakta Prala Nara Jaya Bhakta Prala Sila Prala Nara Nitai Gora Haribo Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. जय श्री श्री भक्ति पथ सर्वविघ्न विनाशक निश्चिंकरे भगवान की जय। देव भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। निताय गौरारी प्रेम आनंदे हरि हरि बोल। श्री वृंदाय तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय।
वृंदावन वासी रूपरासी कृष्णा दासे कोए ये ना मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये ना भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये ना भासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रनाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रनाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama
हरे हरे जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
जया वृंदा देवी
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी भक्ति सत्य विष्णु भक्ति पारे वृंदाई तुलसी भक्ति सत्य विष्णु भक्ति पारे वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय सभा सत्य विष्णु भक्ति पारे श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की। O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to attend the service of Shri Radha and Krishna, wherever the Kishore to be as wishes fulfilled, bestowing myself on him and making resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in Pleasure Grove of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I've always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavita himself, Suvraj. Please give me the privilege and personal service, and make me your honored servant. His very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always sing aloud, Shri Radha Govind, Shrimati Tulsi Maharani, Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Ita Drushitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Vidrishamya Jani Nanuraga Trinarapi Shanichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagarisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavata Bhakti Raituki Tui Oinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Visame Bhambudo Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galorashudharaya Varanam Gadu Gadarudaya Gira Urakaya Nijitam Babukada Tavanam Agrane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakrusha Pravusaitam Shanya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahiname Asli Svapadaratam Pinashtumam Adarshanar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatatava Viradatulam Patu Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratishe Namaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart with the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the five conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the primary benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays, the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which you're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord and strolling straight, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he should remain so, even if sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharya Nivasesa Sunyavari Paskatya Nisatani.
The 18 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord.
2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4.
To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature pursuant to the Vedic version.
5. To consider the glories of chanting
Hare Krishna
to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretations of the holy name of the Lord. 8.
7.
7.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruit of activities or karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter.
It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting.
Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema.
Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord.
They are just like desired trees, they can
fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa terabhyascha kripasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharya Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paskati. Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai. Om Aganya Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitamsa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shiva Savanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastate Namaste Sadhuvani Shri Murtaye Nilatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Korish Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Vaidaya Bhakti Dwar Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Virayate Guruvir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premapadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhaktasaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namastute Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarva Swapadambo Jo Radha Madana Mohana Divyad Vindaranya Kalpradumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatasita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestrana Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chentamani Prakata Satma Sukalpa Riksha Laksha Vritesu Suravira Vipaliantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalai Daksham Parhavitam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vramsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Chaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsada Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Muni Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatum Jagadanda Kotim Yachakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyomana Jastataiva Sampraptya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktaryameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Dayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adipurisham tamaham bhajami premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santaksa deva hidayesu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govindam adipurisham tamaham bhajami ramadi murti sukalani amena tistan nanavataram akarod bhuvanesu kintu Krishna swayam samabhavat paramam pumam yo govindam adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Yash Koti Svasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesha Bhutam Arvindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagananda Satani Sute Trigunya Tad Vishaya Veda Vitayamanam Sattva Valambi Parasattvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lilaya Tena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nichadamni Tale Chitasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sute Sutesu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vichasyayina Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shristi Stati Pralayasada Vasaktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanurupam Apiyasya Chachestate Sa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Vishesha Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambhutam Apitata Samupaiti Karyat Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Deeparchareva Hita Santanam Abhyapetya Deepayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrike Bharicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saruma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalamya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaikas Nisratitakalam Adhavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Baswanya Tasma Sakalesu Nijesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatiyat Apitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samaye Saganadi Raja Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganamambu Maruti Sascha Kalasta Tatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yashaksuresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Srutayastapamsi Brahmadi Kita Patagava Tayasta Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopam Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandha Nurupa Falabhajana Atanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurav Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamaparete Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham bhajami Shriyakanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumish Chintamani Ganama Yitoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitadaswadyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bihisravati Sirabi Vyascha Sumahan Nimesa Dakyova Rajati Nahiya Tripisamaya Bhaje Svita Dvipam Tamaham Ihagolakam Itiyam Vidantas Te Santakshiti Viralachara Katipaye Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Shri Brahmasamita Ki Jai Shri Guru Vastika Prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress their deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and stuck. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus Feet of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande, Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. So we're going to go over one more time this introduction to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because in a few paragraphs, Prabhupada is able to summarize the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita and point to the most salient points. S-A-L-I-E-N-T. Salient means most important, most significant points. And what is that? Well, Prabhupada says, that in the Bhagavad Gita, 1866, Krishna says, "Give up all your nonsense and surrender to me. I will protect you." We say, "Oh, surrender. But I have so many responsibilities." In other words, we say, Krishna said, "Give up all your nonsense and surrender unto me. I will protect you." But we say, "Oh, surrender. But I have so many responsibilities." In other words, I can't surrender right now because I have too many responsibilities. And Maya, illusion, says to us, "Don't do it, or you'll be out of my clutches. Just stay in my clutches, and I'll kick you." It is a fact that we are constantly being kicked by Maya, just as the male ass is kicked in the face by the she-ass when he comes for sex. Similarly, cats and dogs are always fighting and whining when they have sex. Even an elephant in the jungle is caught by the use of a trained she-elephant who leads him to fall into a pit. We should learn by observing these tricks of nature. Well, that's a fact. We have the dogs at the farm, and the mother dog and the father dog, who have had recently 6 puppies, they're always hanging out with each other, and they like to play ball games. Throw the ball and then they go and catch the ball, or the disc. You throw the disc, and they go and catch the disc, and then they fight with each other. And they also fight with each other when they have sex. They go like that, and they're biting each other. So Prabhupada knows everything. He says, you want to know about nature, you read Prabhupada's purports. He explains what nature is. And he says here that we should learn by observing the tricks of nature. What are the tricks of nature? How Maya fools us to avoid Krishna consciousness. Those are the tricks. It's amongst the animals, it's amongst the human beings, it's amongst the insects, the birds, the aquatics, the insects. Everywhere you'll see these tricks of nature. How the living entities are being fooled into avoiding Krishna consciousness and coming under the complete control of Maya. Maya has many ways to entrap us, and her strongest shackle is the female. Of course, in actuality, we are neither male nor female, for these designations refer only to the outer dress, the body. We are all actually Krishna's servants. But in conditioned life, we are shackled by iron chains in the form of beautiful women. Thus, every male is bound by sex, and therefore one who wishes to gain liberation from the material clutches must first learn to control the sex urge. Unrestricted sex puts one fully in the clutches of illusion or Maya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu officially renounced his illusion at the age of 24, although his wife was 16 and his mother 70, and he was the only male in the family. Although he was a Brahmana and was not rich, he took sannyasa, the renounced order of life, and thus extricated himself from family entanglement. Well, this sounds like, ooh, this is misogynist, it's anti-woman, anti-female, blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a minute. Let's keep reading and see what Prabhupada says. If we wish to become fully Krishna conscious, we have to give up the shackles of Maya. Or, if we remain with Maya, we should live in such a way that we will not be subject to illusion, as did the many householders among Lord Chaitanya's closest devotees. Whoa! Now this is the opposite here, he's saying. He's saying basically that we have to give up the shackles of Maya, and Maya has many ways to entrap us, and her strongest shackle is the female. But then he says, or if we remain with Maya, meaning with, let's say, a female, we should live in such a way that we will not be subject to illusion, as did the many householders among Lord Chaitanya's closest devotees. So, yeah, Nityananda was married. Lord Chaitanya was married, but then he left his wife and his mother when he was 24, took sannyas. But Nityananda was always married. And Advaita Acharya was married. And Shivas was married. And, of course, Narada Muni was a lifetime brahmachari. But many of the most intimate devotees of Lord Chaitanya were married. But yet they lived without being shackled by Maya. And then it continues. It gives more information here. It says, with his followers in the renounced order, however, Lord Chaitanya was very strict. So he had grihastas. Most of his disciples were grihastas, but he also had sannyasi disciples. But he was very strict with the sannyasi disciples. With the followers in the renounced order, however, Lord Chaitanya was very strict. He even banished Junior Haridasa, an important kirtana leader, for glancing lustfully at a woman. So, Junior Haridas is different than Haridas Thakur. You shouldn't mix them up. The Lord told Junior Haridas, he said, you are living with me in the renounced order, and yet you are looking at a woman with lust. Now, how did Lord Chaitanya know that Junior Haridas was looking at a woman with lust? He had asked Junior Haridas to go to the house of Sikhi Mahiti, who was, Lord Chaitanya had three most, let's say, intimate devotees. Two of them were men, and one was Sikhi Mahiti. So it's said that he had 2.5 extremely, let's say, intimate devotees. One was, I think it was Swarup Damodar Maharaj, and then what's his name? And the second one, and then the half was Sikhi Mahiti, right? So he goes to her house. He's supposed to beg some rice from her because she had some very special rice. And he knocks on the door. She comes to the door, and he asks for some of that special rice that she has for Lord Chaitanya. And she says, sure, I'll give it to you right away. And she's a very old woman, right? So one day, a devotee asked Prabhupada a question. He said, Prabhupada, I don't understand. This Sikhi Mahiti was a very old woman. How could Junior Haridas look at her lustfully? He said he wasn't looking at her lustfully, but with her was a young and very pretty girl that was like living with her and like an assistant to her, and he looked at her with lust. So that confusion in the minds of devotees was eliminated when Prabhupada explained that, because the Sikhi Mahiti was very old, right, and she's a very intimate devotee of Lord Chaitanya. So with the sannyasis, he was very, very strict. So after this, now Lord Chaitanya was not present when Junior Haridas went to see Sikhi Mahiti. He wasn't with him, but he's the super soul, so he understood what Junior Haridas did. And it was just a glance. It's not like he meditated on her, on that pretty girl. It was just a glance, but the glance was with lust. So it says here that the Lord told him, you are living with me in the renounced order, and yet you are looking at a woman with lust. Other devotees of the Lord had appealed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to forgive Junior Haridas, but he replied, all of you can forgive him and live with him. I shall live alone. In other words, he was threatening to leave the devotees and go off by himself if they tried to convince him to forgive Junior Haridas. On the other hand, when the Lord learned that the wife of one of his householder devotees was pregnant, he asked that the baby be given a certain auspicious name. So while the Lord approved of householders having regulated sex, he was like a thunderbolt with those in the renounced order who tried to cheat by the method known as drinking water underwater while bathing on a fast day. In other words, he tolerated no hypocrisy among his followers. This is a very important point. Now, in very few times does Prabhupada write a sequel. Look at the word sequel, S-E-Q-U-E-L, to his purports. You know, when it comes to the end of a chapter, that's the end. But sometimes he writes a sequel. So, what does it say?
Something that takes place after or as a result of an earlier event.
Yes. So after he finishes an entire chapter, sometimes, very rarely, he writes a sequel. Now I'm going to give you an example of one. Let me just find it. Okay, 1 second. It's going to take me a few seconds to find this. And what he says in the sequel is extremely important for Krishna consciousness. Okay. Haridas Thakur. Okay. Let's see what he said here. I will find this. Hey, look up Junior Haridas in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. My mother and my brothers used to call me Junior because I was the youngest one in the family. What?
In Antyalila chapter 2, there is a chastisement of
Okay, Antyalila, good. What verse?
The whole chapter is about
Haridas Thakur. But where's the one chastising? Okay, glories to Haridas Thakur. That's Haridas Thakur. Look up Junior Haridas.
Antyalila chapter 2, right?
Okay, Antyalila chapter 2 is about Haridas Thakur.
Says the chastisement of junior Haridas.
Oh, it says that? Okay. Oh, well, it should be at the end of the chapter. Okay. Let's see if it's at the end of the chapter. I don't think so. No, it's not. See. What?
So this is what it says. Chastisement of junior Haridas.
The purport of this chapter. Oh, well, okay. Well, this is the no. Let's see. The purport of this chapter is explained by Srila Bhaktivinoda. Chastisement of junior high. What is this chapter? It's Antyalila 2?
Yes.
I don't think so. No, maybe it is. Okay.
Here it is
So
chapter 3. You are in chapter 3.
Let's see at the end of this chapter. It's a long chapter. Come on.
Just jump right there.
to chapter 2. It's not this. No, it's not him. Okay, it's somewhere else. Anyway, we'll come back to it. But in the sequel, Prabhupada writes that he emphasized the fact how strict Lord Chaitanya was, and he didn't tolerate his sannyasis doing any nonsense. So what happened to Junior Haridas? Lord Chaitanya refused to meet him, and then his disciples tried to convince him, no, forgive him. He's just a kid. He didn't know what he was doing. He said, no, if you want to forgive him, you can live with him. I'm leaving. So when he said that, they all became afraid, and they didn't say anything after that. So what did Junior Haridas do? Because Lord Chaitanya refused to see him, he committed suicide. And when he committed suicide, Lord Chaitanya was satisfied. And then it explains that every night, Junior Haridas, who was a very good kirtaniya, he was one of his main kirtan disciples, he would come to Lord Chaitanya. This is after he committed suicide, and he would sing for the Lord, and the Lord was very satisfied by his singing. So this is a very let's say it's a very strange pastime, but in the sequel, Prabhupada explains how it's absolutely necessary for the devotees to strictly follow the rules and regulations. Now we see Lord Chaitanya did not oppose grihastas having sex and engendering children and then raising the children to be devotees. But he did not, but with the renounced sannyasis, he did not tolerate any deviation, any even slight deviation. Why? Because otherwise, Krishna consciousness would become a laughing stock of the public. If the grihastas, they get divorced, or the husband is cheating on the wife, or the wife is cheating on the husband, this is a mockery of sanctity of marriage. And sannyasis, if they're looking lustfully at women, that's another, no. It ruins the whole reputation of Krishna consciousness when people are acting like that. So that was his explanation in the sequel, and how it's absolutely necessary for the devotees to strictly follow the principles of Krishna consciousness. Now, those principles may be a little bit different between Grihastha ashram and Sannyasi ashram, but the main thing is not to be a hypocrite. If one promises to do some things and not do other things, then they must stick to it. And if they fall down, they should admit it and then get rectified. That way, Krishna consciousness maintains its integrity in the eyes of the public and in the eyes of the Lord himself. Okay, so then it says, from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we learn how Lord Chaitanya taught people to break the shackles, S-H-A-C-K-L-E-S, that means the chains that are tying someone up. It's so let's say, severely that they just can't break them. It's not rope usually. It's usually metal chains. Look up the word shackles, S-H-A-C-K-L-E-S. So Lord Chaitanya taught people to break the shackles of Maya and become immortal. Thus, as mentioned above, the title may be properly translated as, so the title is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? So now he's going to explain what that means. The title may be properly translated as the character of the living force in immortality. Chaitanya means the living force. So the character of the living force in immortality. That's what Chaitanya Charitamrita means. Did you find the sequel? No, shackles.
The pair of fetters connected together by a chain used to fasten a prisoner's wrists and ankles together.
A pair of what?
Fetters.
What?
F-E-T-T-E-R-S.
Fettered. Okay, something that clasps it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Usually the feathers are also metallic. Yeah, maybe it's leather, but I think they're metallic, yeah. Okay, so now it says, the supreme living force is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is also the supreme entity. See, you have to understand, energy is something that makes people and makes things move. So there's potential energy and kinetic energy. So let's look up potential energy and kinetic energy. It's good to know the difference of it. Potential energy is like, let's say you put a 1,000-pound ball, metal ball, on top of the Empire State Building. Right? So it takes a lot of energy to get it up there, right? And now you push it and it starts falling down. So the potential energy is, carrying it up to the top of the Empire State Building. And then the kinetic energy is when you let it fall, all that energy of movement is kinetic energy. So what does it say?
So the potential energy is the energy possessed by a body by virtue of its position relative to others.
Yes.
And in case of kinetic energy, so the kinetic energy is the energy which a body possesses by virtue of being in motion.
Yes. So when you push the ball from the top of Empire State Building, it starts coming down at a tremendous speed. That is called kinetic energy, right? So same way, like let's say you accelerate your car, and now it's moving very fast, So and it's because of the explosion in the carburetor, and it forces things to move. So energy makes things move. So the supreme energetic is Krishna. He's making everything move, and we are one of his energies as jivas, and then also his expansions as the Vishnu incarnations and so forth. We are all energies of the Lord. Srimati Radharani is his internal energy of love and devotion, and eternality is one of his energies, and all knowledge is another energy of his. So he is the source of all that energy. Just like, you have a battery in your cell phone. If the battery's dead, nothing happens. It's only because when the battery is still charging your cell phone that it works. So you always have to have a source of energy in this life. And there's two types of energy. There's potential energy, like, for example, coal, C-O-A-L, coal, has potential energy in it. Right? And when you set it on fire, it's released. Right? And gasoline has a lot of potential energy, right? And then, wood has potential energy in it. And then and all that energy is originally coming from the sun in the material world, and the sun, the energy, light and heat energy of the sun is coming from Brahma Jyoti, and the Brahma Jyoti is coming from Krishna. So he's the supreme energetic. So he says here, the supreme living force is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is also the supreme entity. There are innumerable living entities, and all of them are individuals. This is very easy to understand. We are all individual in our thoughts and desires, and the Supreme Lord is also an individual person. He is different, though, in that he is the leader, the one whom no one can excel. No one is equal or greater than him. Among the minute living entities, one being can excel another in one capacity or another. Like each of these living entities, the Lord is an individual, but he is different in that he is the supreme individual. God is also infallible, and thus in the Bhagavad Gita, so infallible means he never makes any mistake. He's never subject to the laws of material nature. He controls them. He is not subject to them, even though he comes into the material nature. And thus in the Bhagavad Gita he is addressed as Achyuta, which means he never falls down. This name is appropriate because in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna falls into illusion, but Krishna does not. Krishna himself reveals his infallibility when he says to Arjuna, when I appear in this world, I do so by my own internal potency. This is 4th chapter, 6th verse. Ajopimam, Avyatma, Bhutanam, so forth. Ajopimam, Avyatma, Bhutanam, Ishwaropi Sam, Prakritim Swam, Adistaya, Sambhavami, Atma Mayaya. Thus, we should not think that Krishna is overpowered by material potency, meaning Maya, when he is in the material world. Neither Krishna nor his incarnations ever come under the control of material nature, or Maya. They are totally free. Indeed, in Srimad Bhagavatam, one who has a godly nature is actually defined as one who is not affected by the modes of material nature, although in material nature. In other words, there are some people like Narada Muni who's in the material nature, but he's not affected by it. Right? He's not affected by the mode of goodness or the mode of passion or mode of ignorance. He's transcendental to them. Therefore, even though he's inside the material nature, he's liberated. They are totally free. Indeed, in Srimad Bhagavatam, one who has a godly nature is actually defined as one who is not affected by the modes of material nature, although in material nature. If even a devotee can attain this freedom, then what to speak of the Supreme Lord? Yeah, if a devotee can become free of the influence of modes of material nature, what do you expect from the Supreme Lord then, who's the origin of everything? But yet the Mayavadis say when he comes, when Krishna comes, or any incarnation comes, they are, or he is, under the modes of material nature. You see how vicious and mean and wrong the Mayavadis are. Okay, so now this next paragraph is the reason why we're going over this one more time. Is extremely important for us, and it says, the real question is, how can we remain unpolluted by material contamination while in the material world? Srila Rupa Goswami explains that we can remain uncontaminated while in the world if we simply make it our ambition to serve Krishna. One may then justifiably ask, how can I serve? It is not simply a matter of meditation, which is just an activity of the mind, but of performing practical work for Krishna. In such work, we should leave no resource unused. Whatever is there, whatever we have, should be used for Krishna. We can use everything: typewriters, automobiles, airplanes, missiles. One time they said to Prabhupada, the devotee asked, Prabhupada, something I don't understand. You say you can use everything in Krishna's service. How do we use the atomic bomb? Prabhupada said, yeah, we use it on the communists. So, it says, the real question is, how can we remain unpolluted by material contamination while in the material world? Srila Rupa Goswami explains that we can remain uncontaminated while in the world if we simply make it our ambition to serve Krishna. One may then justifiably ask, how can I serve? It is not simply a matter of meditation, which is just an activity of the mind, but of performing practical work for Krishna. Now we talked about Ramana Maharishi yesterday, right? He's a big meditator. And by the way, the end goal of his meditation is complete silence. Right? And then we read yesterday, but this is nonsense because the end goal of the devotee is to always talk about Krishna. Right? Prabhupada, look, all this is all about Krishna, right? This whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, the whole Bhagavad Gita, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. So how can someone like Ramana Maharishi say, oh, the end of everything is silence? And then people believe it, although they don't remain silent. Like, for example, you can go on the internet and see all these different videos about Ramana Maharishi. And it's his disciples. But what are they doing? They're not silently meditating. They're talking about him. But he says that the highest goal is silence. So, you see, his whole process is undoable for the mass of people. The mass of people are not going to, and just like that one devotee that was talking yesterday, I told him, I said, you're talking about all these things, but you're not going to do it. And later on, he's been, yeah, you're right, I'm not going to do it. I'm married, I have my kids, you know. So we see that he's teaching a type of yoga practice that maybe 1 in a billion people will do. The rest will not do it. They'll talk about it. They'll do a little bit of meditation, yeah. And wait a minute. What is meditation actually? What Prabhupada says. It is not simply a matter of meditation, which is just an activity of the mind, but of performing practical work for Krishna. So this practical work for Krishna is called devotional service, Krishna consciousness, right? That is the highest meditation, because you're using every faculty, your mind, your intelligence, your ego, your body, your senses, everything in the service of Krishna. And it's practical and it's time sensitive. In such work, we should leave no resource unused. Whatever is there, whatever we have, should be used for Krishna. We can use everything, typewriters, automobiles, airplanes, missiles. If we simply speak to people about Krishna consciousness, we are also rendering service. If our mind, senses, speech, money, and energies are thus engaged in the service of Krishna, then we are no longer in material nature. By virtue of spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, we transcend the platform of material nature. It is a fact that Krishna, his expansions, and his devotees, that is, those who work for him, are not in material nature, although people with a poor fund of knowledge think that they are. So people look at us and say, oh, gee, you guys have been really, really tricked by your guru. You're wasting your life. You're not eating meat. You're not going to the nightclub. You're not going on vacation. What's wrong with you, man? You're letting life just slip through your fingers, and you have to live life. You have to have sense gratification. Well, the devotee is not interested in that. So you see that it's the antithesis of the material conception of life. Look that word up. Antithesis. Antithessis.
Yes, either a person or a thing that is the direct opposite of someone or something else.
Yeah. So the whole ethos, ethos, look that up. The whole ethos of Krishna consciousness is antithetical to the material conception of life. Ethos, ethos.
The characteristic spirit of a culture or a community as manifested in its beliefs.
Exactly right. Our culture, our community is based on Krishna consciousness. Practical, unending, or the practical activity in service of the Lord. Practical activity. And Ramana Maharshi is giving all that up and just remaining silent. You see the difference? And he's one of the most famous yogis in India. So many people follow him. But they can't follow him because what he did is impossible for most people to do. But yet they talk about it as if this is the goal of life. See how crazy the whole situation is. They're advocating something that they can't actually do. This one guy did it, okay, and there's some merit to what he did, but the whole process is antithetical. It's the opposite of Krishna consciousness. So it's actually a waste of time. So, therefore he says here, if our mind, senses, speech, money, and energies are thus engaged in the service of Krishna, then we are no longer in material nature. By virtue of spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, we transcend the platform of material nature. It is a fact that Krishna, his expansions, and his devotees, that is, those who work for him, are not in material nature, although people with a poor fund of knowledge think that they are. So, this is why I wanted to go over this one more time, because this one paragraph, if we understand this one paragraph, we are actually Bhakti Vaibhava. That means we have assimilated the whole knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Okay? So people who are practically engaged in the service of the Lord, either as pujari or cook or pot cleaner or truck driver or electrician or plumber, and they're using their talents in the service of the Lord with no material motive other than to please the Lord. And that's not a material motive, that's a spiritual motive. They're actually liberated persons. Now, there are plumbers, there are electricians, there are truck drivers, there are pot washers, there are pujaris that are not liberated because they are expecting something in return for what they're doing. Whereas the devotee is completely dependent on Krishna, has no fear of, oh, how am I going to pay my rent? Oh, how am I going to go to Safeway and buy food? No, not worried about those things. He's worried, if he's worried, it's how to be on time for his service, how to be regulated, how to strictly follow the rules of Krishna consciousness. And then you see, just like this was what was going on when Prabhupada started the movement. People would come and completely surrender, like myself. I completely surrendered, gave up everything I was doing, right? And then what happened? Then we would go out on Sankirtan every day. And we didn't really understand the philosophy very much, other than we have to follow these rules and regulations and do things that Prabhupada is asking us to do. And then Prabhupada would ask us to do things that seemed impossible. Like, for example, open a temple with no money and very little education, right? But I was able to open the temple, right? So it was a struggle, but we were able to do it. And then, like, for example, the translation work was going very slowly. So then he said, I want to finish the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I think he wanted to do it like in 1 month or 2 months. Like Chaitanya Charitamrita, look how big it is, right? Because it was going too slow. Obviously, devotees were engaging in some kind of sense gratification, and they were not paying attention. So he galvanized, look that word, galvanized, Galvanize, galvanized. He galvanized the devotees. He put energy, he changed the potential energy, the kinetic energy, pushed the devotees really hard, and they did it. They finished the whole Bhagavatam, I think, in 3 months. I mean, the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita in 3 months. Because Prabhupada knew he was going to leave his body, and he didn't want to waste 1 minute. There were certain things he had to do. What does it say? Galvanized.
Shock or excite someone into taking action.
There it is. And that's what he did. He shocked, excited devotees. the book development devotees, the book publishing devotees, to translate and compose, give it to the printer, and get it printed. And they did it in 3 months. An amazing, amazing thing. So you see, we don't realize what our potential is, but with the help of a bona fide guru and gurus, we can push ourselves to do wonderful things that we could not have done normally without Krishna consciousness. So this one paragraph, if you just study this one paragraph, starting with the real question is, how can we remain unpolluted by material contamination while in the material world? That paragraph of the introduction, just focus on that. Read it every day, just to remind yourself, this is real Krishna consciousness. Okay, so what time is it now?
7:17.
Okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Maharaj, you said like initially you did not fully understand
The philosophy.
the philosophy. So, like, what was your kind of moment where you started with the systematic study?
Well, I didn't have to understand the philosophy. All I had to do was just follow what Prabhupada asked us to do, which was what we promised. No gambling, no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex. Always chanting Hare Krishna and hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, eating only prasadam, and visiting the temple. Well, I lived in the temple, right? And go out on Sankirtan. We understood that much. But that was enough to keep us engaged in devotional service. And then if you keep hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, you eventually do understand the philosophy, all the fine points, as we're doing now. Right? But you don't even have to understand the whole philosophy. You don't have to be highly educated. You might not even be literate. But if you simply follow, literate means you're able to read and write and speak really well. But if you simply follow these basic principles, everything will be revealed, and you'll be able to, convince others to be Krishna conscious by the purity of action and thought. I mean, I didn't know what Sanskrit. I didn't even know what the meaning of the Hare Krishna mantra was. Yes. Yeah. Okay, you say in the microphone. Microphone. You know about Ramana Mahesh?
No.
No, you don't?
No,
Oh,
I don't know.
he's South Indian.
No, just a statement is that he became famous because a lot of Westerners and more people from UK, they were visiting. It's a Shiva Sthal. It's a very
ashram.
famous, the ashrams, and they were like. This is in the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah. Where was his ashram? What part of India? Kerala?
No. It's near Tiruvannamalai. Tiruvannamalai is a very famous
Tamil
Shiva. Yeah, Tamil Nadu. Yeah.
That's a Shiva place.
Yeah, it's a very famous, very old.
How do you say?
Tiruvannamalai.
Tiruvannamalai.
Yeah, Malai means mountain, or Giri is a mountain in
Yeah.
Sanskrit. So Malai means in Tamil, it's
And Tiru means sacred.
yeah, sacred. Or Tiru is actually Shri. Shri is Krishna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, technically, but it's
How do you say that? How
Tiruvanna.
do you say that? Tiru?
Tiruvanna Malai.
Okay. Like Ras Malai.
Yeah. Tiruvannamalai.
Well,
So
Malai means a mountain.
yeah, Malai
Doesn't
means
mean it,
mountain
right?
in Tamil. So I mean, for many hundreds and thousands of years, people were there, yogis and other people, right?
Yeah.
It's you can say it's like Himalayas of the south or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of yogis come there and meditate. It's not a new thing, but in the 40s and 50s, a lot of Westerners came, and then they were like seeing people meditating, austerity were performed, and they were like awestruck by what they were seeing, and they started writing about it, and then they were propagating in their country when they went back, and that's how they got in more people. So even now, if you see, I mean, lot of Westerners, a lot. There are many ashrams. A lot of Westerners are there, again doing the yoga system and other stuff, but not the real stuff though. So that's the reason why that became very famous. Only after they were propagating it, a lot of people got to know about it. Otherwise, it was just a normal thing, just yogis doing their normal stuff.
Okay.
So
Thank you for that. Thank you for that update. So Tiruvannamalai.
yeah,
It's not Tiruvannamalai. Tiruvannamalai.
yeah.
Yeah, I knew I left that A out. Tiruvannamalai. Okay. They're like Tiruchandur, Tiruvannamalai. Yeah. Yes.
This Ramana Maharshi, what he is teaching, is it similar to like Vipassana? Whatever people do here, like go for
Silence.
silent camp,
No talking.
no talking for 10
No
years.
thinking.
Vipassana, I think they call it Vipassana. Is it like similar term?
Vipassana is more, yeah, it's because Vipassana is very related to Buddhism. But what Ramana Maharshi was doing is it's related to Buddhism also. In fact, they talk about Buddha also along with him. The Buddhism also is, you just, the highest goal is meditation, right? Stopping all activity, stopping all mental movement also.
Another one near Pondicherry. It's called Puducherry. It's called Pondicherry. It's very.
I've been there.
What's that?
I visited Pondicherry.
Yeah. So there is. I don't remember. I've just once visited that place. It's a very big dome, Maharaj. It's literally a ball.
A what?
A ball. A big ball.
Yeah.
I don't remember what's the ashram's name, because people were going. I just went, and it's really good. In the sense, very neat. I'm talking about 20-25 years ago. So
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah,
of
that's when I went there too.
they come and what's that? Aurobindo, exactly. Yeah, Aurobindo ashram.
Mother Midnu and the mother.
Yes, yes.
The mother was a Jew.
Uh-huh.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I didn't know. We went there for food.
She was married and she visited Aurobindo and she left her husband. Her husband had to go alone back to Europe, and she was born in Egypt, but she was a Jew from Egypt. And then he claimed that she is the incarnation of Durga.
Yeah. But the environment, Maharaj, it is so attractive. That's how I think people are falling for it.
Well, look, that big dome. What's the attraction of the dome? It's the burial place of Aurobindo and the mother.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and then you have all these Hindus come there, and they treat it like the deities. They don't have the deities. It's just where they are buried, right? It's like there's a big dome, and then inside there's a little area, and they walk around it.
Yes.
Did you see that? Did you go inside?
It's again, Pondicherry is very hot, right? So it's all air conditioned.
Yeah.
And there is just one transparent film on the top of the dome, and light is very intense, right? Because it's South India, it's very intense. So if it's like literally like from a movie, right? Light comes in directly just from that one hole, and the whole internal part is all lit up, and then it is very nicely air conditioned, and then people just sit there for hours. And again, it's all done by Westerners, and
Yeah.
that's how it became a thing.
No, they also have self-sufficient cottage industries. They make incense, they make paper, all kinds of different things in there. Yeah, food. Yeah. Yeah, well, Pondicherry used to belong to the French,
Yeah.
right? So the Indians kicked them out. They came in with tanks and kicked them out. But yeah, I've been there, and it's just they're just worshiping two dead bodies. They don't even see the dead bodies, right? And Aurobindo was a Bengali. Prabhupada said that in his earlier days he was mostly bona fide. He knew the Shastra, but after he met the mother, he went off, completely, and claimed that she's like Durga and all kinds of things. And then and his philosophy, I mean, you can read his books. if you know Krishna consciousness really well, you can understand what he's talking about. But if you don't understand Krishna consciousness, you can't really figure out what he's saying. But he knew the Shastras very well, but he just went off, because of his attachment to the mother. Before he met her, he was a strict brahmachari, and very educated, highly educated man, and handsome also, and highly educated. He could speak really well, but the whole thing was ruined. So because they have nice organization, okay, so people get something, but they don't get the real message. I was not so impressed. I was more impressed by the cottage industries there. But the temple that they had, I wasn't impressed. Can you see all these Hindus, they can't stop doing things like artis and kirtans and things like that, but there's no deity. And by the way, I want to know something. In Tiruvannamalai, there is an ashram of Ramana Maharshi, and they have like a temple room, but I don't think they have a deity of him. I think they have like an empty asana. Why don't you look it up, find out what's in the temple. I think they have an asana, but I think it's like empty. But I'm not sure. I want to know for sure. Yeah. If it is, it's like Aurobindo also. They just have this burial site inside the dome, and then people walk around it, and they do arti to it, and they touch it, purify themselves, whatever. Yeah, but it's
The best thing, Maharaj, again, I remember when I went 25, 30 years ago, I guess, but they make it very attractive, superficially. But of course, I was not, because I went for the food, because we were just passing by, and then they said, hey, there is some free food. That was my goal. But I was not attracted, but I could see why people were attracted to that, because again, back 25 years ago, the streets were not clean, so the ashram was absolutely clean.
yeah.
Well paved, lot of trees, and
Yes.
water was very nice, and air conditioned room. So that's
Yeah.
how they are able to attract people.
Well, that's the way we should attract people too. We have to keep the temple clean. Yesterday I spent most of the day cleaning the temple. It was so dirty. It's amazing. And they did a cleanup of the temple before Gaur Purnima, right? And again it was very dirty, very, very dirty. I didn't clean it everywhere. I cleaned mainly the prasadam hall, and especially where they put all the mops and in that little cubby hole. That is extremely dirty, and there was, all kinds of smudges and dirt on the floor of the prasadam hall, and there was a whole bunch of junk. Just like this thing is, this printing press has been here for over a year, right? I keep telling Namrata, take the damn thing out of the temple. It doesn't belong here. If you can't sell it, then just throw it away or give it away. We're not using it. We should have used it all this time, but he hasn't. So we can't let things collecting in the temple junk, right? And especially the prasadam hall is full of junk. So I spent a long time cleaning it yesterday to get rid of a lot of that junk. It's just been laying around. Okay. One time when we had the small house here, one time this lady came in, an Indian lady. She was very well dressed, and she looked at the curtains. We had, it was small, but we had some windows. And there were some curtains, and the curtains were dirty. And she said out loud, "Oh, the curtains are dirty," and she left. Because in her house, the curtains are really clean, right? So, yeah, people see things like that, and they're like, they themselves are clean and very organized, and they see something disorganized and dirty, they're not interested. They're not interested at all. So we have to keep the temple very, very clean and simple. Okay, so we'll stop right there. So did you find?
About the Ramana Maharshi,
Yeah.
I was
They have a temple, they have some kind of room where people sit down and meditate. And I thought I saw an empty Vyasa, but I'm not sure. Okay, we can look.
Maharaj, about the junior Haridas Thakur, so couple references are coming, but I'm not sure what exactly.
Go ahead, let me hear it.
It's one of the translation in Antya Lila 2.107. It says, after begging the rice from her, junior Haridas Thakur brought it to Bhagwan Acharya, who was very pleased to see its quality. This is one of the...
Yeah, but see, it doesn't say that he looked at a young girl that was standing next to Sikhi Mahiti. That was something that Prabhupada explained to us. Because we all thought that he looked at Sikhi Mahiti with lust. But no, she was an old woman. She was very old. Yeah. And then, what else?
This is about punishment. After this, the Lord punished junior Haridas, and Damodar Pandit gave some warning to the Lord.
To the Lord.
This is in Madhya Lila 1.259.
So it's Madhya Lila, okay.
1.259.
259.
259.
Madhya Lila.
1.259.
Oh, so that means the first chapter.
First chapter, 259 verse.
Okay. First chapter. So when it says 1 point, Madhya Lila is the second book. Which chapter?
First chapter.
What?
First.
Oh, first chapter. Okay. No, that's not it. That's not it. It's a sequel. It's at the end of all the verses, and there's nothing. Any other reference?
All the verses in the end of the chapter?
Yes. Any other verses? Or any other references?
I saw in one of the end of the chapter, but that's different. It says, thus the end of the Bhakti Vedanta purport.
No, that's not it. All right, I'll find it. And I'll read it tomorrow.
I think in that Antya Lila second chapter was towards the last verse. There was
Well, we'll look again. Lila, second chapter.
the last verse.
Okay.
It says, summarizing this chapter, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that
Oh, no, it says instructions from this chapter. Yes, summarizing. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So he says, summarizing this chapter, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that one should derive from it the following lessons. 1. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is an incarnation of mercy, he nevertheless gave up the company of one of his personal associates, namely Junior Haridasa. For if he had not done so, pseudo-devotees, false devotees, would have taken advantage of Junior Haridasa's fault by using it as an excuse to live as devotees and at the same time have illicit sexual connections. There it is. Such activities would have demoralized the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as a result, devotees would surely have gone to a hellish life in the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. See, Lord Chaitanya understood that, the sannyasis cannot be playing around with, illicit activities, because it would demoralize the other devotees and would make a laughing stock of the whole movement, and people would lose their respect. Such activities would have demoralized the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as a result, devotees would surely have gone to a hellish life in the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Point 2. By chastising Junior Haridasa, The Lord set the standard for the acharyas, or the heads of institutions propagating the Chaitanya cult, and for all actual devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to maintain the highest standard. Point 3. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed that a pure devotee should be simple and free from sinful activities, for thus one can be his bona fide servant. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his followers how to observe the renounced order strictly. Number 4. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to prove that his devotees are exalted and that their character is ideal. He kindly accepts his faithful devotees and teaches them how much tribulation and disturbance can be produced by even a slight deviation from the strict principles of devotional service. Number 5. By chastising Junior Haridasa, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his mercy toward him, thus showing how elevated was Junior Haridasa's devotion for him. Because of this transcendental relationship, the Lord corrected even a slight offense committed by his pure devotee. Therefore, one who wants to be a pure devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should give up all material sense gratification. Otherwise, the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are very difficult to attain. If one dies in such a celebrated holy place as Prayag, Mathura, or Vrindavana, one can be relieved of the reactions to sinful life and then attain the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although a pure or faithful devotee may fall down, he nevertheless ultimately gets the chance to go back home, back to Godhead, by the mercy of the Lord. Okay, so that's it. So it is Anta Lila chapter 2. I didn't notice it because it had the same text size as the rest of the verses. Instructions from this chapter. So very seldom does he do this, put something at the end that's an explanation of that focuses on a main point in the verses. Because he has purports to the verses, right? But sometimes he'll put an extra purport like this. Haribol. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
And then in the Ramana Ashramam, it looks like there is Samadhi. How? So there is Ramana Maharshi's tomb is there.
But is there a picture of him or something?
There is a statue of him
There's a statue of him?
sitting.
Oh, okay. Sitting on an asana?
Yes.
Okay.
That's apparently the Samadhi hall.
That's where his body is?
I think so.
And that's where
Yeah.
okay. See, I didn't see that. I think I saw this. And it didn't look like there was anything there. But there's his dead body, okay. He's in Samadhi. So they have a lot of pictures on the wall. They're all of him, all those pictures.
Yeah, and on the website it says Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Yeah, they consider him Bhagawan.
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Bandhu Mui Sabadana Mate
Bandhu Mui Savadana Mate
Jaha प्रसादे भाई ये भव दूरिया जाए। प्रसादे भाई ये भव दूरिया जाए। कृष्ण प्राप्ति हो जहाँ होय दे।
कृष्ण प्राप्ति होया होयते।
गुरुमुख पद्मा वाक्या चित्ते ते कोरिया क्या। चित्ते ते कोरिया क्या। अरना कोरी हो माने आशा। श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति। गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति। जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्वा आशा।
ये प्रसादे पूरे सर्वा
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो। प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते। वेदे गाय जहाँ राचरितो। भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते। वेदे गाय जहाँ राचरितो। श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु। लोकनाथ लोके राजीवाना। हाँ हाँ प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पाधा छाया। हाँ हाँ प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पाधा छाया। प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पादा छाया। ये बेझास घुसुक त्रिभुवना। घुसुक त्रिभुवना। प्रभुपाद पतित पवना। जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद।
जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद।
जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव। Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pasyadya Desatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pasyatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajigachasta Tarasatri Shishi Shimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premananda. All glories to Soul, all glories to Soul, all glories to Soul, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishnu. Hare Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which you can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to this lotus feet, pray on forever. By its grace, we can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened
eyes and fills my heart with transcendental light. He is my Lord, Bhakta. From him ecstatic Brahma emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of bliss, friend of the poor, the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful to me. Give me the shade of your lotus when your fame is spread.